All right, so welcome everybody. Thanks for joining me. I'm going to mute everybody that's on the Zoom, just so that we can get through the content, and then if folks have questions, I'll address questions when we're done. So I'm going to go over, for those of you guys that participated in December, some of this will be a review, and then I do have some legislative updates. Essentially what we want to do is make it so that you have access to this material, and then you can go back and train your folks at your site and other colleagues so that they have access to the information as well. So let me just share my screen and we'll go ahead and get started. All right, we'll go over a couple things, kind of just where we stand as far as the legislature goes, where we landed with the election results and what the makeup of the legislature looks like. I'll go over a little bit of a preview, and this is where we have a lot of the updated information. And then you should have received the Influencing Your Legislators document from Roxana when she sent out the Zoom link. So that has the bill process and then all of the updated information. The document looks like this. It has all of the updated information with the new members, new legislators, their the districts that they represent, phone numbers, office numbers, all of that stuff. So we will make sure that you have that. So just a quick overview, statewide offices, we know now we had the inauguration on Monday. We have essentially a split statewide government. So Doug Ducey is still the governor, but we do have 2 Democrats in office in Katie Hobbs. And then Kathy Hoffman, of course, is our superintendent of public instruction. And in the state Senate, we again, the partisan split is the same. So we still have 17 Republicans and 13 Democrats. But of course, the players are very different, and that's what makes the Senate, you know, provides for some opportunity here given the different players. Senate President is Karen Fan, someone we have a relationship with, so we'll work with her. Other folks, Mr. Boyer, Paul Boyer, is actually sponsoring a couple of bills for us, and as we get to the bill process, I'll walk you through what he's working on for us. The Senate Minority Leadership is Minority Leader David Bradley. He's out of Tucson, and then you do have some former representatives that are now senators. That includes Sally Ann Gonzalez, Leila Alston, and Rebecca Rios, and Tony Navarrete. And then Victoria Steele was a former legislator in the House, and then she ran again when Senator Farley decided to run for governor. The House is a really big opportunity for us. There is a big split. 31-29 is the partisan split. Republicans still hold the majority, but it is a very slim majority and the smallest that we've seen in over 30 years. So there is a lot of opportunity here. The House Majority Leadership is Rusty Bowers. So for those of you guys out in Mesa, East Valley, the speaker is Bowers, and definitely someone that we want folks to connect with and talk to. Minority Leader is Charlene Fernandez. She represents Yuma, West Valley, parts of Goodyear, and then parts of Tucson as well. And the kind of the big wins in the House were seats that were able to flip to Democratic control. And that starts with LD 17, or excuse me, LD 10, Domingo de Grazia out of Tucson. So that seat had gone to Republican Claude Felter in 16. And so DeGrazia was able to flip it back to a Democrat seat. Jennifer Pollock was actually the top vote getter in Legislative District 17, that's Chandler. And that is a Republican seat. Her seatmates are former Speaker Mesnard, now Senator Mesnard, and Representative Wenninger. And then LD 18, Mitzi Epstein is now joined by Jennifer Germain. So LD 18 is now fully a Democrat district. Lorenzo Sierra is new as well. And then the fourth seat that flipped in the House was Aaron Lieberman, LD 28. So again, there's opportunity here. We have a really good relationship with Representative Udall. Joe and I met with her, had lunch with her earlier this week. She is the chair of education this year, and is working with us on several priorities. So we're really excited to continue to develop that relationship with her. She is seatmates with Speaker Bowers. And so again, for those of you that are out in the East Valley, Mesa, definitely want folks to connect with her, with Speaker Bowers, and then with the new Senator Tyler Pace as well. So as far as updates go and our priorities, we will continue to prioritize public education funding as the top priority. There is a lot of talk going on. Senator Allen has introduced a bill, a referendum that is a 0.4 increase to the sales tax. That would generate about $400 million on a good year additional revenue for public schools. Not a billion. She had an op-ed where she's describing it as $1 billion new dollars. It is not a full billion. We currently get the classroom site fund and Proposition 301 is a 0.6 sales tax. And so increasing the sales tax to a full penny will only generate an additional $400 million. And just kind of where we stand on that, of course, that's not enough. It is insufficient. We'll continue to call on the governor and the legislature to act this session on funding. I met with the Senate Appropriations Chair yesterday, had a really good conversation with him, Senator Gowan, on funding. We'll continue to develop that relationship, and as the chair of Senate Approps, we want to work with him on funding. So definitely going to welcome conversations around funding with anyone that wants to talk to us about it. Republicans, Democrats, the governor, it doesn't matter. We want to be part of the conversation, so we will pursue that. A very exciting update that I have. So we've worked on English language learner reform. As some of you know, most of you know, so we currently have the structured English immersion block here in Arizona, and that requires schools to offer structured English immersion for 4 hours a day. And oftentimes when students are in the SEI block, they aren't able to get all of the curriculum that they need. They often fall behind and don't graduate on time, or sometimes don't graduate at all. And after about a decade of having this SEI immersion, we have data that shows that it's just ineffective. It's not backed by research at all. And so had really great conversations. I mentioned the bill sponsor, Senator Boyer, last year ran this bill for us when he was the House Education Chair. We pulled together a broad coalition of stakeholders, folks including Stand for Children, the department, the School Boards Association, administrators, Unidos US, just a broad coalition of parents, One Arizona community partners on this issue. And unfortunately, last year the bill got stalled in the Senate. And it really got caught up in the politics of the end of session. Of course, Red for Ed was huge. So a lot of bills just kind of slipped through, and this is one that we lost at the end there. But the good news is that Senator Boyer is bringing it back. He has introduced Senate Bill 1014, and it has been calendared to be on the Senate Education Committee next Tuesday, January 15th. So we are very excited that the bill not only has been dropped and introduced, but already, will be on education. And then, of course, we also worked with Representative Udall on Representative Udall on this issue as well, and she's going to be introducing an identical bill in the House, and that should be heard early or during the first committee as well. And so when we introduce mirror bills, they move through the process a lot faster. And once we get through the process, you'll kind of see why that is important, because there are a lot of ways for bills to be stalled when they're running as a standalone bill. The other issue that we're really focused on is minimizing the impact of standardized tests. We've introduced the teacher evaluation bill, a bill related to teacher evaluations. This will be the third time that we are introducing this bill. We really want to take quantitative student data and particularly data that's tied to the statewide assessment out of evaluations. So currently between 33 and 50% of your evaluations are tied to data. What we hear, oftentimes districts kind of default to using the state assessment. And again, that doesn't, it's not a reflective picture of your performance in the classroom. And because these evaluations are tied to performance pay, we want to make sure that whatever data is being used is relevant to you, your classroom, and your students. And so this is also part of a larger conversation that we're having with legislators around the impact of high stakes testing in our schools. And so definitely starting to have not just a conversation about evaluations, but really the amount of stress that comes along with the amount of testing that happens in our schools. So we'll continue to work on that and educate legislators on the negative impact of standardized tests and how we can work to minimize that impact through the legislative process. A couple of other issues, so charter school accountability, definitely we'll be working on that issue. We introduced last session a package of bills with a few members of the Democratic caucus on charter school accountability, really related to finances and wanting to increase the level of transparency. Essentially, we're making the argument that if you take public funds, you should be accountable to disclosing how you spend those funds, much like school districts are accountable to the public, charter schools should be as well. And unfortunately, right now, even a nonprofit charter is often a nonprofit is often tied to a private company, a charter management operator. And so because it's a private company that they run all of their business through, that private entity does not have to disclose financial documents. And so we don't have access to, information like how much they spend on administrative expenses, what their salaries look like, all of that stuff. So we definitely will continue to push on charter school accountability. Like I said, we introduced these bills last year. This was really a long-term strategy and really wanting to raise the issue. And I'm excited that I think we'll be able to get something done around charter school accountability this year. We'll have to really monitor to make sure that it's not just a surface level, not really a meaningful change. So we will continue to push, but there is a lot of talk now about charter schools and them needing to be held accountable. We started the conversation in February, and Republic has really latched on to this story and has done a series of exposés and different op-eds and pieces, investigative pieces, excuse me, on charter schools. And so the more that we can kind of keep that public pressure up, the more that I think we'll be able to get something done on the issue. And then two other very important issues to us, will continue to talk about community schools and how we shift our focus to really building schools that are meeting the needs of the communities that they're in. And then lastly, we've heard from members, you know, during Red for Ed, during Invest in Ed, during the election, the impact of the cost of healthcare on your paychecks. And so we are starting a conversation, much like the conversation that we started last year with charter schools. We'll be starting a conversation this year around securing affordable healthcare for public school employees, and what that looks like. Doing some research and really starting to make the case for the need to have affordable healthcare for school employees. So that is the kind of another issue that we will be working on as well. So we have several threats already that have been introduced through you know, really attacks on Red for Ed and the movement. Representative Fincham and Representative Townsend have introduced several bills in the House. Senator Allen has a bill related to school employees and investigations and how they share information on investigations. That is being heard in Senate Education on Tuesday. Don't really have an assessment on the impact of that bill yet, but we'll get you know, we'll get an analysis from our attorney and then really determine how much of a threat that bill is. The other ones, you know, I honestly, I think it's political theater at this point. So House Bill 2002 all the way down to 2026. It is, you know, a direct response to Red for Ed. The legislators have come out and saying that they you know, are responding to Red for Ed. So if you guys are meeting, I do encourage you to meet with these folks, Representative Fincham, Representative Townsend. They need to hear from us, and really, you know, we need to redirect them on what they should be focusing on instead of attacking teachers, instead of attacking the movement, and the work that you all have done. They should really be focused on investing in our schools. So we really have to shift the conversation and continue to put apply the pressure on the need to fund schools. Another threat that we've seen is that we've heard about, there isn't a bill yet, is to the state retirement system, which you all are all on. So the state retirement system, so there is a lot of talk. This is, we are hearing, a top priority of the Chamber of Commerce. There's a lot of talk about the high contribution levels, which you all are well aware of, and how they impact take-home pay for educators. And while, of course, we know that, that it is a high contribution rate, we do believe that the pension system is a wonderful benefit that you get as a public school employee, and we do not want to see that you know, dismantled, interrupted, or anything like that. So we will do everything that we can to defend against any threat to the state retirement system. We're actually hosting a pension briefing, we're calling it, for all legislators and their staff on January 30th at the Capitol. We have several legislators, Republicans and Democrats, that are going to be joining us. We'll be bringing in some national groups to talk about pensions. NEA will share some research that they've done We know that pensions help with teacher retention. Again, it is a benefit that folks see as put a lot of value in, and so we will do whatever we can to protect that. And then the other threat, which is always a looming threat, is privatization, vouchers, student tuition organizations, changes to anything like that. We've already seen a bill, House Bill 2022 from Representative Fincham. So this essentially transfers oversight of empowerment scholarships out of the Department of Education and over to the state treasurer. Again, you know, especially now that we have an ally in the Department of Education, we want somebody that is going to clean up that mess, because the ESAs are riddled with waste, fraud, and abuse. And we want somebody like Superintendent Hoffman, who will make sure that if ESAs are being used, that they're being used appropriately and that there isn't any fraud going on. So we don't want, you know, we don't want to see the oversight taken away from the department. All right, so we'll go through now kind of the legislative process. So I talked through, you know, how, what issues we're seeing, and now it's like we have all of these ideas, we have policy ideas and things that we want to get accomplished. So now it's like, how do we get that done? So we have the legislature and the governor. So the legislative branch, as I mentioned earlier, we have 30 senators and 60 representatives, and then of course we have one governor, our executive branch. And then so in order for a bill to become a law, we need 16 votes in the Senate, 31 votes in the House, and then the governor needs to sign that bill. A bill can become a law without the governor's signature, as long as he doesn't veto it. The governor does have veto authority though. This happened, one of our bills got vetoed in 2017, the teacher evaluation bill. We got it through both the House and the Senate with almost unanimous support. I think I had 3 no votes in both chambers, and the governor vetoed it 10 days after session ended. So that was a real kick. So we, you know, we want to make sure that what we get to his desk gets signed into law this year. Then, so we also have the option of a referendum. So Senator Allen's sales tax increase is an example of a referendum. So this is a bill that does need to move through the legislative process. And again, you still need the 16 votes in the Senate, 31 votes in the House. But instead of going to the governor for signature, a referendum goes out to voters, and voters give it the final up or down. And we kind of bypass the governor altogether. So this session, I can tell you, we're going to hear a lot about referendums, because in order to raise taxes, in order to raise revenue, the legislature, we need a 2/3 majority vote. So you definitely need more, a lot more than 16, a lot more than 31 to get that. And then of course the governor's signature, and getting a 2/3 majority is really difficult given the legislature that we have. So you will hear, instead of taking that path forward, which is the path that we would love to see, we'd love to see a legislature that has courage enough to raise revenue on their own. What they will default on is this path, the referendum. We'll have a lot of conversation around referendums. Like I said, Senator Allen's already introduced one. Senator Kate Brophy-McGee has been having stakeholder meetings on Proposition 301 as well. So there's a lot of talk about a referral. And these referendums would go to the November 2020 ballot. And then the final option, which we all are familiar with, is the Citizens Initiative. This is where Arizona's residents and citizens can put their own measures on the ballot. And that's exactly what we did with Invest in Ed. We kind of bypassed the legislature and the governor altogether, and then we come up with our own law and petition voters to put it on the ballot. We will continue to leverage this. You know, we have a lot of legislators who are nervous. We meet with them, and they're talking about a referendum because they're nervous about Invest in Ed coming back. And so the more that we can leverage that, the more that we can kind of keep the energy up around, you know, if they're not going to do it, we will do it, and really leverage our power. That way, the more pressure that we can apply to the legislature and the governor. So there are multiple steps in the bill process. It starts with a bill introduction and it ends, like I said, with the governor's signature. It could be a 10-step process. Conference, committee, and final pass are not steps that always happen. And I'll walk through everything, and then I'll kind of explain when we need conference, committee, and final pass. So bill introduction. So I just updated the pictures. So this is our ELL bill, Senate Bill 1014, which has been introduced again with Representative Boyer, and you see there that it does have bipartisan support. Already we have both Democrats and Republicans sponsoring this piece of legislation. So the committee hearing is that, you know, they put out calendars for committee. This is what it looks like when they put them out. And so you kind of see the list of the senators that are on the committee, and then the agenda for the actual committee. And I pulled these pictures up, so just to give you kind of a sense of the difference that having presence at the Capitol makes. So this is Speaker Mesnard introduced his this is the capital gains income tax bill, the bill that gave millionaires a tax cut. So when he introduced it, this is February 14th in the House, he's testifying in committee on the bill, and there is one lobbyist sitting behind him, okay? Flash forward a few weeks later, and he's testifying in Senate Finance, the same bill, and you see the room is full of red behind him. And so we were able, it just happened by chance that our lobby day, our second lobby day, was happening at the same time that the Senate Finance Committee was happening. And so we were able to stack that committee with people, and folks really watched, you know, the committee hearing and the process. And some folks, a lot of folks were kind of appalled at the fact that there's a lot of concern. Some members expressed concern when they explained their votes. But again, they still voted the bill out of committee. Fortunately for us, this bill got out of committee but never made it anywhere else. So they it got stalled again because of red for ed. Then you have, so once a bill gets out of committee, it goes to rules. So rules is a very powerful committee. So all bills have to go to rules. And let me just kind of backtrack real quick. So when a bill is introduced and first read, it is assigned to a single committee or multiple committees. If a bill has a price tag to it, so if it costs money, it's usually assigned at a minimum to appropriations or to appropriations and something else. So let's say that it is an education JTED funding. I'm just throwing that out there. So let's say it's a JTED, they want to restore funding for JTED. So that bill could be assigned to the Education Committee and to the Appropriations Committee. The bill has to make it through both committees before it goes to rules. And so, it's a cue from leadership, from either the speaker or the president, when a member has a bill either double or, like triple assigned. Some bills get assigned to, 5 different committees. It is really difficult to get bills through committees that quickly. And so when it is assigned to that many committees, it's a sign like we don't really want to see your bill move through. But so, like I said, they get out of committee, then they move to rules. Rules is the committee that determines constitutionality. So every single bill that moves through the legislature has to go through either House or Senate rules. And then once it gets out of rules, it goes to caucus. And each party has caucus. So the Democrats caucus with Democrats, the Republicans caucus with Republicans. It's essentially a team huddle. So, I said we have, for example, 60 members in the House, and not all 60 members are on all of the committees. So this is the opportunity for them to kind of talk to each other about the different bills that they have heard in their respective committees. So, I'm a member of the caucus. I sit on education, and as the education bills that are on the caucus calendar come up, I can speak to why I voted for the bill, why I voted yes, why I voted no, and provide context for the other members of the caucus. That's kind of the purpose of that. It's really a team huddle, an opportunity for the caucus to kind of discuss and ask questions. From caucus, the bill goes to committee of the whole. We call it CAL for short. So this is, I forgot to mention amendments. So this is an opportunity for the bill to be heard, but also an opportunity to amend the bill. So you can only amend a bill twice in the process, in committee and during CAL. So let's say we introduce a bill and it's a shell bill, you just need to get something out. You're not quite done with the language yet, but you're running up on a deadline. So you introduce the bill, you're going to offer an amendment in committee. The committee date comes and goes and you're not quite ready yet. You can offer an amendment on the floor during CAL. This is where the conference committee and final pass come in, though. If a bill is amended in the opposite chamber, it has to go back to the chamber of origin for a for conference committee and final pass. So that means that, let's say that, for example, the ELL bill, let's say that it gets out of the Senate unamended, and if we had it moved to the House and they amended it in the House, it would have to come back to the Senate for conference and final pass. That's just how the process works. So both bodies have to see and vote on the final version of the bill, regardless of how many times it's been amended. If you're going to offer amendments, like for us, just strategically, if we're going to offer amendments, we want to make sure that we get all of the amendments done in the chamber of origin, because that's the way that you get to skip conference committee. If all amendments are done in the chamber of origin, you move it to the second chamber, and then it just moves unamended, and you don't have to bring it back for conference. So that's why it can either be an 8-step process or a 10-step process. And then this is after CAL, we third read the bill. This bill here I pulled it up from last session. This was Yarbrough's STO expansion bill. It barely got out of the Senate. He was the 16th vote there. But fortunately, again, this was one of the casualties of the politics of last year. It was a bill that got out of the Senate, but when it was heard in committee in the House, we also had a bunch of Red for Ed folks there, and it just ended up being a bill that got tucked into a drawer. All right, so the this part is really going over, kind of giving you the tips and tricks of lobbying, and in your document here, the handout is really going to become super handy for you in when you are planning legislative visits and Capitol visits and meetings, things like that. So I just want to share tips that I kind of tell members when they're getting ready to lobby a legislator. We definitely want you to remember always that you are the education expert. You should not be intimidated by the legislators. They are people too, and they are not education experts. There are some that have education backgrounds, but you are the individual that you know, is in schools every single day. You have your experiences that you can share. Your personal story is probably the most powerful thing that you can do when speaking, that you can share when speaking to a legislator. Really focusing on keeping your message simple and telling your personal story. One of the things we're going to try and do this year, we're trying to do a few things differently when it comes to our legislative program, is really have materials for you guys as bills come out. You know, we'll have a one-pager of issues, kind of talking points and things like that that you can have as you're going to meet with members, and then kind of a leave behind one-pager that you can leave with them. So we'll definitely work on getting that ready for you guys as we kind of see more bills coming in. There have been I think just over 70 bills that have been introduced so far. And I can tell you that is a very low number. We usually see bills over 1,000 bills that are introduced. So we haven't seen very much yet. There will be a huge dump probably next week. And then members have until early February to introduce bills. So we have a lot of time for them to kind of bring things forward. So there are various ways that you can influence legislators and lobby. You can do it via email. Email is very easy and convenient, but the success rates vary. So it can be successful in two ways. If you are sharing a very personalized message, so it's not a standard, you know, click here and send this stock email to your legislator. But if you identify yourself in the subject line, you share your personal story, and you really personalize the message, you know, why you are reaching out to them about a specific bill or issue. And then the other way that it is effective is the number of emails make a difference. So number of emails, let's say that the issue is funding, right? If it's an education funding kind of campaign, email campaign that you're working on with your members, your locals, and you ask all of them, you know, we all need to send an email to make sure that they get, you know, 500 emails on this specific issue. That definitely makes a difference when the legislators see that there is a significant amount of folks that are calling or emailing about about a specific issue. And I mentioned it, but phones also, the volume on phones matters. But when lobbying via phone, my biggest recommendation to you, whether you're on the phone with the assistant or meeting them in person, be nice to that person. They may represent a legislator that we are not friends with, someone that has been adamantly opposed to education, public education, etc. It is not the assistant's fault, and we should always be kind to that person. The assistant can be your best friend or your worst enemy, because they essentially control the calendar of the member and will decide whether or not you get a meeting with the legislator. So keep that in mind when you are talking to that person. If a legislator gives you their cell phone number, text messages are great. I text legislators all the time, giving them talking points, or you know, giving them our position on a bill or an issue. If they share their cell phone number with you, just be respectful of how much you text that person, things like that. When you're leaving messages via phone, make sure that you identify yourself. So identify yourself as either a constituent in their legislative district, or that you work at a specific district in their legislative district. So identify yourself and then let them know what you're calling about. So, you know, please vote yes on Senate Bill 1014, please vote no on Senate Bill 1020, etc. So you can leave that for them. And then of course, leave your phone number when you're leaving a message. And then lobbying in person. So you can do this two ways. And this is really where we want you guys to kind of take this and go back and plan with your locals. So if you're going to come down to the legislature meets Monday through Thursday. And the Senate, the House Education Committee meets on Tuesday afternoons at 2 o'clock, or excuse me, on Monday afternoons at 2 o'clock. The Senate Education Committee meets on Tuesday afternoons at 2 o'clock. So if you have an interest in attending one of the committees, know that they are on those afternoons. We'll make sure that you have this information in your in the materials that we send out. So, you know, as you're planning, know when those committee hearings are, so that you can make sure that you schedule your visits around that. The other way is to work with legislators to plan back home. They usually all go back home on Fridays or for the weekend, unless some legislators, you know, live a good drive away, so they might stay in town and not go back home every week. But definitely you can work with that legislator to schedule a back home meeting. And we really want folks, as you guys are planning, we want you to plan back home accountability town halls for every member of the legislature, Republicans and Democrats alike. All members need to be held accountable to their voting record and to their support for educators, because they all campaigned on being pro-public education. So as we see bills move, we need to make sure that they are voting in a way that is supportive of public education. And if they're not, you know, these accountability town halls will be a good place for you and your locals to hold that member accountable, and to inform them that, hey, you know, we're not happy with what you're doing, and this is why we have certain positions on issues. They need to know that we're watching, and that's essentially what these town halls can do. So again, as you guys are planning for your sites, definitely think about how you can fit in a town hall for your locals. So another way to lobby is in committee. So you can come down to the legislature and testify in committee. So this is where you, I'll go over kind of what the request to speak system looks like. And you can, you know, several of you may have testified last year. I, you know, had a couple pictures here of folks testifying. Again, this is a, testifying in committee is a formal process. They follow Robert's Rules of Order. So the protocol is to speak through the chairperson and answer questions through the chairperson as well. So when you're testifying, we always want to be direct, brief, and then again, that personal story, as much as we can get it out there, the better. Lobbying from home. So with the request to speak system, you can sign up. Once you're signed up, I'm going to get out of this so you can kind of see what that request to speak system looks like. So when you go to azleg.gov, this is the, you can click on request to speak. Legislative tracking is here. It all takes you to this. So you have kind of like this back office. And if I log out real quick, you can kind of see. So, so when you click on the either request to speak or the bill tracking, you get kind of this screen here. And you need to have an account to do a formal request to speak. I have my account here, so I can sign on. And when I go into the request to speak, can you see?
Stop share.
Why?
They couldn't see your screen.
Oh, okay. Can't see my screen. How do I share my screen if they can't see the website?
Oh, okay. Go back to the share screen. Sorry. The request to speak.
But do I have to click share? Oh, crap. Okay, I know why.
Sorry.
Sorry, guys.
I'm sorry. Should I come over here?
Let's see. Okay. All right. Could you guys see the screen now? I probably should have had the questions up. Okay. Okay, great. Sorry about that. Well, okay, so let me backtrack. So when you go to azleg.gov, you have the option to click on request to speak, legislative tracking. This also kind of gives you the standing committees. There's the House and Senate rosters are here, and schedules. Legislative Council and their website, you can find all of the Arizona Revised Statutes here. So it's a good website. If you haven't explored it yet, definitely take the time to do that. But as I was saying, when you click on either request to speak or the legislative tracking or the bill tracking, it brings you up to this screen here. So you have the option to click one or the other. If we click on request to speak, and I click sign on, once you have an account set up, you're able to, you are able to put in a new request and look at your bill positions. So I'm going to go back to kind of show you guys from last year what my request to speak looks like. So obviously I, as the lobbyist for AEA, every time I log in, it says that I'm representing Arizona Education Association, and then it has our position for the bill. So I obviously have a lot of bills. As the lobbyist, you won't have to sign in on that many bills, but just wanted you guys to kind of see what that looks like. And you do it. Once the legislature is active, this will be an active website. Right now, it is. It's not. But you will be able to enter bill numbers and see committee calendars and then submit your request that way. If you don't have a request to speak account, I'm going to dump this link into the chat box here. Oops, hold on. And so you can sign up, use this form to sign up for request to speak. We will work on getting you signed up to the request to speak. But we have members that, you know, the reason why you have to kind of do it this way is because we have, in order to activate the account, if you don't have one yet, it has to be activated at the Capitol. So that makes it difficult if you, for example, live up in Flagstaff and you can't get down to the Capitol. We can get you registered and logged in and get your account activated, and then send you kind of like your, you know, we usually just use your email and make up, you know, a simple password for you. So we'll definitely, if you don't have an account yet, please sign up here and we'll make sure that we get one for you. Okay, I'm gonna go back to there. Okay, figured that out. All right, so, oh, my pictures, oh, there they are. So when you're lobbying as a team, again, as you guys start planning your Capitol visits, make sure that when you are heading down to the Capitol that you give yourself plenty of time to get there. As many of you probably learned last year, parking can be very tricky at times, especially if organizations are having their lobby days. It gets difficult to find parking. So make sure that you give yourself time. If you have an appointment scheduled, and I definitely encourage you, as you are planning, to make sure that you schedule meetings with your legislators ahead of time, so that you're not just popping in and trying to get a meeting that day. So, you know, set a date. If you know that you're going to go on February 13th, and that's your, you know, that's the date that your local has set, take the time to make some calls and schedule meetings with your respective legislators. And then when you are coming in as a team, definitely try to go in pairs at least, so that it's not just one of you having a one-on-one. Take 2, 3, 4 folks to meet with members, with legislators. Make sure that if you are coming down as a team, that you give yourself some time to kind of brief and chat with each other, kind of align, determine who's going to be the person talking, who's going to be taking notes, who's going to do the follow-up, things like that. Kind of go in with a plan. And then always, I can't stress this enough, be polite to both the assistant, as I mentioned earlier, but also to the legislator, again, regardless of what they have said or done, etc. We should always be kind to the individuals. Go in with confidence, and again, know that you are the education expert in the room when you're speaking to them. And then do be a little bit flexible. So if you do have meetings with multiple legislators, try to give yourself a little bit of a buffer. So I always try to at least do, you know, 15 minutes between meetings, because sometimes the members run late. And so then I'm late for my next meeting, and then we don't want to do that. So give yourself about 15-30 minutes between meetings if you schedule multiple in one day. because the legislator schedules can be a little hectic. Some just general lobbying tips. Again, always be on time, be punctual. If you set a meeting, especially if you have a meeting with a legislator, make sure that you're on time. If you have a meeting with a representative, just remember that they have the security there, so it's going to take you some extra time to get through security. The Senate doesn't have that same problem, but the House definitely does. Introduce yourself, give a firm handshake. When you're meeting with members, don't just complain about a specific issue. Propose solutions. We want to come forward with our own solutions. We want them to hear our ideas. So come with us an idea for a potential solution. Maintain eye contact, speak loudly and clearly. Again, the personal story is the most powerful thing you can share. Show your passion. Make sure that you have fun while you're doing this. I know sometimes, I know firsthand how stressful the legislature can be and frustrating at times, but try to know why we're down there and try to have a little bit of fun with it. Dress professionally while you're down there. Definitely wear your red. Some gentle reminders. I say this like 50 times. Treat everybody with respect. Staff, assistants, security guards, all those folks hold a lot of power because they can either make it easy for you to meet with a legislator or make it really difficult. And then, of course, don't get into fights with legislators. Don't argue with them. We just want to be in there and be respectful. Let's not give them a reason to say, this is why we're going to push this bill forward, etc. Be sure that you say thank you. Handwritten thank you notes go a long way. And then again, there are in politics and down at the legislature, there are no permanent friends and no permanent enemies. There are members down there that I never thought we would work with, and on specific issues, you never know where they are. A perfect example was Senator Smith. For 2 years in a row, he championed teacher evaluations for us. The first year got it all the way to the governor's desk. Second year, we got it as far as we could. And then hopefully Mr. Boyer will pick it up this year. But again, on different issues, we might have some strange bedfellows here. So definitely we don't want to burn any bridges or make permanent enemies. We want to always embrace the fact that some folks might not agree with us on one issue, but will be with us on another. And then the same thing goes for our friends, guys. Sometimes our friends are on the opposite side of an issue. And so that's a whole other set of challenges too. So we will probably have to apply pressure to some Democrats this session. And as those come up, we'll be sure that you guys know who they are and what you can do to influence them. But we definitely want you to start with your legislator and engaging them. So I'm going to jump ahead here because we kind of did this already. And I'm going to stop the share and open it up for questions. Does anybody have questions that they want to bring up? You can unmute yourself, I believe.
Steph, I have a question really quick. So Kelly Townsend wants to meet with me.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
And I don't know how necessarily comfortable I feel with it. So what's like the best way to tell one of these people, I'd like to meet, but can we, like, I don't want to meet with her. I don't want to get set up is what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, so definitely don't meet with her alone is my recommendation. Take a couple people with you. And if you guys have these meetings scheduled and you want me to attend, I'm happy to go with you. So we can work on getting something scheduled together. But especially with the Kelly Townsend and the bills that she's putting forward, for sure, don't go by yourself. Make sure that you go in a team, and just let her know that, again, we want to welcome the conversation and the dialogue, but walk into it eyes wide open, basically.
Right, because she mentioned she wanted to meet because I said something nice about her charter school bill.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, she introduced a bill that would require charters and charter operators to hold public or to follow open meeting law.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Kelly just texted me and said she'd go with me. So
Great.
Teammates.
There you go. Cool.
Thanks.
Do you have other questions?
I do.
Hey.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. I have both headphones. I have it on my phone and the computer. Okay, so my wondering is, you mentioned the RTS and signing people up down at the Capitol. Do you have a form, or how is that going to work, and how are we going to message that to people? Because people are hitting me up and hitting us all up for using Indivisible's kind of system that they have set up with the runners and the Google form that they have. So is there a certain idea that you have that we can push out?
Yeah, so the link, did you guys all see the link in the chat? So it's arizonaea.org/RTS.
Okay.
If you go there, folks can put in the information that we need in order to set up an account. So what I'm going to do is, if you want to direct people to that site, we'll start collecting folks' information, and then we'll have to work out what our system looks like. Haven't figured that all the way out yet, but we'll have our own system to get the accounts activated, and then to communicate back out to the folks that sign up. Here's your username, and here's the, whatever little fake password, if we do like AEA123, I don't know. And they can go in, they can log into their account from home now that we've activated it, use the temporary password, and then they'll be able to update their password to make it their own. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about it. Does that help?
Yes, and can I add another thought?
Sure.
So on Indivisible's site, they have that video that goes with like how the RTS system works. Do you have an AEA version of that kind of learning tool to educate people who are not on this webinar that we could push out as well?
Yes, Roxana can send out, we have a handout of how the RTS works. I'm happy to create a quick webinar to show that to folks too, in a more like condensed version of today, and that can be a tool as well. But right now, I know for like those that need it like immediately, we at a minimum have a handout.
Cool. Okay. Sweet. Thanks.
Yep. Other questions? Great. All right. Well, if there aren't any more questions, then we can wrap up a little bit early. I think, Marisol, are you on? Did I see you?
Sorry, I'm on.
You want to say anything?
Just that this webinar is going to be uploaded onto our website. And so and also, Stephanie, I don't know if you mentioned that we're going to have people who want to go down to the Capitol and need a little bit of briefing before a committee hearing or a bill is going to be heard. We will have staff down there, and so we'll have that also will be on our website, and so we'll send out those links as well so that we can meet with them beforehand. And then we also will, help anyone who wants more information about a bill to kind of make sure they're logging and getting the legislative update that Stephanie sends out.
Yeah.
So to encourage people to get that, because it will come out every week and it will give an idea of what's going on. And I think that's it. I mean, I think it's really important that you're meeting with your legislators and holding them accountable and having a good relationship, because I know several times we've been down at the Capitol, really important bills are going through, and we will call members to say, we know you have a relationship with your member. Can you call them, text them, and push them a little bit harder? Then they're not just hearing it from AEA, but they're hearing it from their constituents, because that's who they are accountable to, is their constituents. So I think that it's really important to build that relationship with your legislators, and invite them to come to your school. In the reverse, go visit them and talk to them as a constituent and tell the stories of the schools in their neighborhood, because they will very frequently refer to those stories when they're about to vote on a bill. So I think it's important that they have these stories and they come from their constituents and the schools that they represent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, it's definitely always more powerful when a legislator hears from a voter in their district, because ultimately that is who they are accountable to. So yeah, the more that if you are a voter in the district, definitely talk to the legislator. And then Marisol hit on it, and I just want to echo that we do have a legislative update. The first one for 2019 was sent out today. If you didn't get it, that means that you either have us on spam or that you're not signed up for our legislative update. So it should come from, it'll say that it's from me, but I work with Shine Shannon, our communications director, on that. And so we send that out weekly. I believe we'll be sending the updates out every Wednesday, but I will also be doing Facebook updates like we did last year, and we're going to try a couple of different things this session to try and keep folks in the loop as much as possible, whether it's through a Facebook Live. We might test how a potential recording the Facebook Live similar to a podcast, but so that you can listen to it like on your drive-in. If you can't necessarily watch it, you would have an audio recording as well. And so again, all of these things we want to kind of package so that you have access to it, but then so that you can also share with your members. So that's kind of what we have coming up. And if there aren't any other questions, then I'm going to give you about 15 minutes back. Thank you guys for joining me today, and I'm really excited. I can't stress enough the amount of power and influence that we had last session. And we probably can't recreate what we did last year, but we can definitely have a constant presence at the Capitol, and that's the goal, right? We want to have a constant presence on a weekly basis, daily basis down there. They need to see us, and they need to hear from us, whether it's at the Capitol or back home. We definitely want to keep that pressure up. So thank you guys so much, and you'll be getting some follow-ups from us, the handouts on the RTS. We'll work on getting a little kind of a webinar video that can be shareable with folks, so we'll definitely get those tools out for you guys. So thank you, have a good night, and we'll see you at the Capitol.